Welcome, everyone, to the Green Room podcast. So glad that you joined us. Just finished preaching on an open heart, and I know our campus pastors preached at their campuses as well. Just pray that God is able to use that to help you live with an open heart and get in community and relationships. So a lot of good questions have come in to the Green Room. I really encourage you to submit questions each week. I know Pastor WAYLON will go through them and answer as many as he can. So I really encourage you to do that. But here, we got a couple good questions in this week. First question was this, is what if I'm in a group and I don't fit in? I personally have experienced this myself. It's actually a group that I was leading as well. And there just wasn't the right fit for some people. So if you don't feel like you fit in, your group leader probably does too. So it's okay. Number one, I would say it's okay that you don't fit in, but also take the step of finding another group, because I believe that Pastor Whalen says it all the time. He's like, they're just weirder than you, so you got to find your own level of weird. So I would just encourage you, find the people that you connect with. Our group leaders are trained not to be offended if people come or people go to groups. So I encourage you, find a group and a place that you fit in. The website's a great place to do that. I would also say if you can't find a place that you do fit in, God's calling you to create that community and to create that friendships with people, and those open heart relationships with people. So I'd say if you can't find the place that you fit in, God's called you to create that as well. So give it another shot. Don't swear off groups because you don't fit in. So next question. How can we practically create a community where vulnerability and openness are encouraged in settings where people may be hesitant to open up? I love this question because, again, I too have experienced this. I remember I was leading a group years and years and years ago, and it was just kind of stale, kind of boring. People weren't really like opening up, things like that, until one person was bold enough to actually open up. And then they were going through something in their marriage, and they said, well, actually, we're actually not doing that great. We just got into this fight, and like, we don't know how to figure this out, all this kind of stuff. And it was funny, after they were bold and they opened up and they were vulnerable, everybody else in the group started opening up. It's almost like somebody needs to be that first domino that falls in vulnerability. So I would encourage you with this, is that just wade into the waters of vulnerability. I said it today. We see vulnerability as a superpower of other people, but we see it as a weakness in ourselves. And so I just encourage you, be vulnerable. And if your vulnerability is not accepted, then potentially there's another space for you in that. But I would also say context matters a lot when you're talking about vulnerability and things like that. If you're opening up and being vulnerable in a spot that's not really conducive for that, I would say the setting probably matters as well. But within a group context, I would just say wade into the waters, be vulnerable, be open, and see how God can meet you in that. Sometimes it just takes boldness to go first, is what I would say. What are some specific ways that God might reveal himself to us through the people around us? There's too many. We could spend hours and hours and hours talking about how God reveals himself to us through other people. Most often, somebody expresses a need and a person comes and prays, and then they become that need. They become the option to fill that need, I should say. And so I've seen in groups here, somebody who, I know a friend of mine just gave birth a couple weeks ago, and their group stepped up and they got meals for this person. Honestly, I had a hard time even finding a day to be able to bring a meal, because they just had so many people helping them, and all those people were in their group. There's other things as far as like prayer, financial help. I know in our group there was somebody who had their AC go out, and so we all just pitched in and helped with their AC. They're going through a hard time, just lost their job, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying join our group because you get your AC paid for, but that is the power that relationship has. Is we're called to share one another's burdens, and sometimes it's with food, sometimes it's with finances, sometimes it's with going to the hospitals and things like that. I truly believe that groups could be the place where all of our problems are solved. If you need something, if there's anything going on in your life, that's what groups are for. So I would say there's any number of ways. I can't think of like just here's a list of 10 specific things, but I would say just about anything you need can be found through relationship. In your connection with other people. But it takes an open heart to do that. I love this question. It says, how can introverts balance their need for solitude with their God-designed need for community? Now, I have to say something. I am not an introvert. I kind of chuckle when Pastor WAYLON talks about him being an introvert. I can't relate to that because I leave Sundays just full. But that doesn't mean I'm not tired either. I think all of us, extroverts and introverts, when we leave really big social settings, sure, there may be some excitement there, but there always is a need for rest as well. And so I want you to reframe, if you will, what introvert means to you. Introversion and extroversion is less about your love or need for connection with people, and it's more about how you recharge. So think of it as like plugging in your phone at the end of the night. Introverts tend to recharge or get refilled by time alone and time together. Me, I recharge when I'm around people and connecting with people and hearing stories and talking and all that fills me up. Doesn't mean I'm not tired at the end of the day, but it fills me up. If I were to be alone and isolated for weeks on end, I would just go crazy because it would be so draining to me. But people who are introverted need that time to be refilled up. Our vacations would probably look a little bit different. So think of your introversion as just how you recharge, how you refill, not about your need to be in community. So last question. If God uses people to bear each other's burdens, how can we be more intentional in being the right person that God sends to help others? I love this question because it shows your intentionality. And I would say this, you cannot be there for people unless you make yourself available to that. So I would say, first of all, I love that you took God's word in sharing one another's burdens and fulfilling the law of Christ. I love that Paul goes on to say, like, if you think you're too important for that, you're really not that important. You're just fooling yourself. And so I love that you took that word to heart. But I would, number one, pray and ask God, okay, God, I hear you calling me to bear one another's burdens, to share them. Help me to understand who that's for. And I promise you, your eyes are going to be open to who you're called to carry that for. And then also, number one, I would say prayer, but also at the same time, just be available. Be available to people who may need you to help them carry things for them. On the personality assessment, my title is called the helper. It's what it's called. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, if you follow that. And so it's the helper. So I love being there for people. And so I would also encourage you with this. One of the downsides of my personality is it's hard for me to let people help me as well. I find my value in how I can help people. But I would also challenge you, who, if this is you, I'll be about being intentional there for other people. Allow yourself to be available to somebody sharing your burden. Not everyone needs to know what's going on in your life, but somebody does. So I encourage you with that. Don't post it on Facebook, all the things that are happening, but you do need people in your life. And I promise you, if you want to be available to help other people and to share their burden, I promise you, God has somebody on the other side of that for you. That's not just my word, that's God's word. And so I encourage you to make yourself available to what God is doing. Well, that's it for the Green Room. I appreciate you sharing your questions. I pray that this was a blessing for you. There'll be a link in the description below on how you can join a group. And again, groups are an excuse to be in relationships, so I encourage you to do that. Find your people, find where you fit in. If you don't fit into the first one, that's okay. Don't be worried about that. Find a new one, because God has community out there for you. Community and relationship with an open heart is how God designed us to live. So I encourage you, don't stop. Find your community, and if you can't, then help create that community here. So we love you, we bless you, and have a great one.